Start the recording. Before we dive into the capstone check-ins, a couple quick reminders. Office hours will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. Obviously optional attendance there, but if you would like to attend, you are more than welcome to. I will be at Common Space at 6 p.m. and I will also open up the Zoom room as well. So if you have any questions, 6 p.m. tomorrow is the right time to either show up in Zoom or at Common Space. Actually, before I say that, is anyone planning to attend in person? Okay, cool. All right, then I will see you guys there at 6 p.m. and also in Zoom if you can make it. Obviously, we'll do our capstone check-in in a minute. And then at 8:30 p.m. we have a due date for the graduation feedback. So if you have not submitted that already, that is a very quick 3-question form with your name, I guess, is the 4th, and any optional notes is the 5th. But that should take you less than 30 seconds to fill out. So if you have not filled that out, please do so now before the end of class. Just so that we've got an idea on graduation. Historically, in the past, we have done graduation as 6 minutes of a presentation where you get up on stage and kind of demo everything. But 6 minutes times all the graduates adds up very quickly. So we're looking for feedback. One, if you want to have a graduation, because that is an option on the table. And then 2, changing up the format as well. So if you guys have a chance, please fill out that form. Excuse me. If you are not ready for a capstone check-in tonight, please make sure that you either message me in Slack or are prepared to send me a video of your progress. There is only one student that I'm aware of that has reached out to me in advance for that. So if you are not on the call tonight or not planning on demoing tonight, please reach out to me in Slack just so that I know where you guys are at. With all of that said, let's go ahead and dive in. Who would like to kick us off?
Joe, you gonna go first? Or you want me to go
I can go
first?
first.
Or
No
you want me to
matter.
go first? Okay. I go first. All right. So my okay, before I start, what's required for so you just wanted like just data inside the database and have it to like display on the page.
You got it. That is it.
Oh, okie doke. So you already know I'm like doing like a website for the modification of like 2006 game. Um I'm not very sure like most of this. It's just like at the bottom right here. Let's just say there. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I can't spell.
I'm telling you, there's a psychological thing of when someone is watching you type, you cannot spell as you are typing. I swear it is a thing. Someone who does that for a living can tell you. I swear I think it's a thing.
All right. So I just click on submit, and on my beekeeper, I don't know why it's on that page. Go here, and then refresh.
Oh no, you were so close.
I know, right? That's so weird. It was literally displaying last night. Well, at least I got the somewhat in here, but I don't understand why you're doing that. Give me one
Well, I
second.
saw it working last night, so I'm willing to give you a pass on that tonight. Um, I know you were close, so I would say there are kind of 2 more things that I would love to see from your capstone, other than this working, which would get you over the threshold for this check-in. Um, is it something with just like the form fields aren't matching up?
I want to say so.
Like it's called content in the front end, but user comment in the back end or something like that?
Might be. Did you not? It was literally working earlier too.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, there we go.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so two things that I'd love to see, and that are optional, because now you have crossed the threshold for requirements of graduation. So two things I would love to see after this.
Mhm.
One is hopefully pretty easy. When you submit a comment, you don't have to refresh the page. So figuring out how to make it so that when you submit the comment, the front end and the back end automatically do the right things to make the new comment show up. Okay, I lied. Three things. Third one just popped in my head. So one, make the comment automatically show up. Two, figure out your flow for the author of the comment. So saying, hey, either this is the email address or this is the username of who posted that comment. So it's not just a comment showing up, it's a comment that is showing up with the author of the comment, maybe the timestamp of when they made the comment, maybe making it so only signed in users can make a comment in the first place. And then obviously making it all show up so that when they hit submit, they don't have to refresh the page to see it. So that's kind of all one bundle together of something to work on. And then the second thing that I would love to get you to is the point of having all of your character data feeding through the database, right? So I know right now we've been focused on getting one fighter or one character to work. But I would love to get you to the point where the page that has all of the character images in it is being generated by the database. And then when you click on a specific version or specific fighter, it's pulling in this page and dynamically loading all of that data in. So those would be the next two steps in my book. But you are technically over the graduation threshold. So congratulations for being the first student that I can officially say that to.
Thanks. Thank y'all so much. But I do have one question, just
Shoot.
super quick.
Yeah.
So I was actually was trying to do that. Like I was gonna try to like have when the user makes a comment, it would like display like the username right here followed by the comment. I just don't know how to do that. That's why I scheduled one with Ryan. Maybe he might know because I don't know.
I think because we figured out your clerk issues last night, that is something that I can also probably help you with, but Ryan can as well. So I know we have office hours tomorrow. I think we have a one-on-one right before that, and then I think you're scheduled with Ryan before that. So the combination of those three between those three times, I think we'll be able to help you out with that. But depending, I am gonna after everyone completes their check-in, I'm gonna leave it up to the class to decide if they want to just work on capstone questions or if they want to start the library project. So if we have time tonight, that's something I can help you with. But I think something that the entire class would benefit from hearing. And so a good question to save for after the capstone check-ins.
Okay. Thank you.
But that is like exactly where we want to be at this point in the program of like, hey, we learned this clerk concept, but how do I use the signed in user to actually store that information in the database?
Yeah.
Really, really good question for that. And so that's where we want to be at. So kudos to you. Awesome job.
I have another question, but we just like that's after this the check-in. So,
Perfect. All right, who would like to go next?
I got next.
Go for it.
Congratulations, Terry, by the way. Great. You need to see any code? Actually, no.
As long as it's working. I got a pretty good BS detector.
Well, I spent 6 hours last night well, total, I think, programming. My commit message was big ass update. All right, so something I added last night was the differing view. So load into the icons, which I put a bunch of C data in there. But if you want to look at it in the list view, this pulls
Very
up
nice.
first name, last name, date of birth, and then you can view in here. This needs to be adjusted, but this is non-editable.
Okay.
These don't pull anything out. This will query. I can look by
Oh, beautiful.
or date of birth.
I'm guessing that is a front end filter.
Correct.
At some
Yeah.
point, I will show you an example of how to do that as a database filter for when you have like thousands of records, but the front end filter is a very good first step.
And then do you want me to do a create real quick?
Yeah.
Give you a prefix of Lord.
Oh, thank you.
Esquire.
Oh, I'm only a millennia and a half old.
Yep. Sure are. This doesn't have any validation in it. And these are all of Onondaga County's.
Oh, come on. You don't think I could speak Chinese for you?
I'm not sure. Can you?
No. My brother can.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't even check that. That must be
A date limitation with the database, I think.
Yep.
Cool.
So
Congratulations. You are officially over the graduation threshold. So I'm going to ask you, what's next for you? What are you planning on focusing on?
I have it on the whiteboard. Roles and workflow with the inbox. So pushing everything. I'm going to set clerical, admin, service coordinator, supervisor, and have them push to the different inboxes just for the case creation part and the case closing part. So clerical will go make a new referral or case that gets sent to the supervisor's inbox. It's all one thing. It's just filtering. They'll go and they'll validate it. Once the case is validated, it will get sent. It'll bring them to assignment. Once that case gets assigned to a service coordinator, it gets sent to the service coordinator's inbox to accept. If anything happens where it gets rejected at either of those steps, it'll get sent back to clerical.
Cool.
And then after that, clerk sign in and UI updates.
So this is kind of the beauty of full stack web development and a really weird point. And I hope you guys are going either starting to feel this now or are close to starting to feel it. You've actually learned everything that you need to learn to go build an application like Facebook, right? Sure, there are complexities of scaling things up and all of that, but if you think about all the web applications that you use on a daily basis, whether it is Facebook, whether it is signing into your bank, whether it is posting on Instagram, whatever web application you use, even checking your email, hopefully you guys are right on that teetering edge of being like, oh, I can actually figure out how they built this, right? There's a database, they're pulling data from it, they're making the data show up on the page, I'm filling out a form, I'm submitting the form, that's doing this thing over here. That's kind of the crazy thing, right? So I would say a good 90% of my day job is using everything that you have learned up until this point. And so that's why it feels so weird of being like, what do you mean? I'm now eligible to graduate. I've met all of the requirements. Well, yes, because all of those requirements, all of those tiny little steps of getting the front end set up and the back end set up and the endpoint to the database and all the syntax in JavaScript and all the data structures and all the for loops and all of that is what is adding up to saying, hey, I actually can build any web application. And that's a really empowering moment. So kudos to you guys so far. I'm going to open the floor to whoever would like to go next, but congratulations, Joe. You are also over the threshold. Who would like to go next?
I can, but actually my back end kind of crash out right now.
Okay.
I don't know why it's going on. I try my best.
Sure. UI is looking really good. Do you want me to take a quick look at that error code and see if we can get it back up and running? You're on mute, by the way.
Oh, sorry. You want me to go back up?
Yeah, let me request a remote and let me see if it's just an error that's a quick one for me to fix. Column age does not exist, so that's going to be in user age, so it is in there. So all we probably need to do is throw an alter true in here to make that column exist.
I already tried it, but it's still not working.
App crashed. Age. Select ID. Okay, what we'll do is I'm guessing in index.js, you've got a seed maybe down at the bottom here. Yep. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just comment this out for now so that the column can get created before we create the user. And that, oh, I thought that would do it. Do you have a, oh, you know what, it's up here too. Oh, well, now it's just being a pain. Alter table age. Okay, so now it's a slightly different error. It's trying to add the age. Column age of relation users contains null values. Okay, so that's because you already have a user in the database. So for now, we'll just set this to true. Can you, let me just pull up Beekeeper quickly. Can you drag that over?
Sure.
Okay. So we're going to comment, we're going to just delete this user for now, or actually delete the whole table, just because it's causing issues with your model. Then we're gonna try this again. So we'll put that back to false. We'll save it. Now the server is happy again. So we'll go back to index and comment all of this back in. And it is mad again around. Location cannot be null. So we'll just say in here, location is Syracuse, New York. Is null now around age. We'll say 0 to not insult anyone. Okay, now you're back up and running, so you should be good to go.
Thanks. So Here I can just signing out. That's number and name. Yep, still have error in here, but I can
Okay.
still go. Store. Column. Location. Day. Yeah, it should be see the data in here. Yep,
Perfect.
thanks.
Okay. Good work. So what's next for you? What are you working on?
I probably will work on my the main page because right now because I still have problem for loading up for that, and then add some API for the images and stuff like that.
Cool. So feel free to schedule one-on-ones with me because there's a lot of stuff in there. I know you've got like friend relationships of this person is this friend and being able to share their goals, or being able to take this information and save it in and then be able to access that on the homepage. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out either for a one-on-one or send them over in Slack, and I can help you work through them there. But awesome work. You're over the graduation line. You got your data saving in the database. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, who would like to go next? Gonna have to hunt you all down for whoever's not going.
I think I'll go next.
Oh, is that Austin I heard? Sure. Austin can go next.
Sure, I'll go. Mine's still very rough. I had to focus on one thing and get it done to get through this.
You are describing the life of any programmer who has ever written any successful application anywhere.
I was trying to go into the console and set the logged in to false. It wasn't working for me, so I'm already logged in. I have a login page, and that'll bring you to this right here.
Okay.
Everyone see that? You can just go in there and we'll do here. Put your intelligence and your level for your wizard. Go ahead and create it, and it's going to bring you. Oh, and now it's not. It might be that number messed it up a little bit. Hold on.
You may need to reboot your backend now
Yep.
that number was so large. Much like my intelligence, I often crash backends as well.
Alrighty. And there we go. And it'll try refresh. It'll show up on the database in there, and it shows name, intelligence, level, and the list of spells.
Beautiful.
Right here.
And now hopefully it's starting to come together. Like you're seeing the data flow, it's taking you to the pages that you want. You're, using those IDs to pass that data around. So what is next for you?
So next, I probably want to get all the spells into the database. Right now, it's just reading off JSON in the front end. And then I want to have those spells you can take from that list and import them into your like personal spell list of what you know.
Awesome. Yeah, so you'll want to use what we did in the blog project to like import the posts and seed the database that way. And then you'll want to get kind of clever with the relational data, right? Of saying
Yeah.
like, hey, I got my spells table, I got my wizards table. Now here is my like wizard spells table that is literally just 3 columns. It will be the ID of the wizard spell, the ID from the spells table, and then the ID from the wizards table as well. And then any of the other ones that you have in there. So if you need any help doing that database modeling or getting that working, we also didn't do too many examples of how to like do the include with the relational data. The only place that we've done that in class was when we had the author of the post and we said like include the user as part of that. But if you need any help with that, feel free to reach out, and happy to help you there.
And yeah, just one quick last thing. This is just a list of all the wizards that each a user has made. And then
Nice.
populate from the. Thank you for that yesterday.
I love to give like a really good hard shove and then let you kind of figure out where to take it from there. And so I'm glad that that was helpful. But awesome, congratulations, you are over the graduation threshold. And so now it's just a matter of figuring out where you want to focus and what makes your app really sing.
You.
Joe, my ability scores are all into an integer because I can't half-ass anything. So why would I need a double? No, no programmer joke. No chuckle out of anyone. Anyone else want to demo tonight? Otherwise, I will follow up with you all on a one-on-one. Congratulations to everyone who has demoed so far. Really good progress.
I'll show mine.
Sure. Get it out of the way. Get it done.
Wait, what are we supposed to be? I can't find it.
So the goal at this point is to have some form on the front end that you can submit and then see the results of that not only in the database, but also on a front end page. So that can be submitting a comment, that can be filling out a create an account form, that can be anything related to that.
Okay.
Be posting an update as a teacher.
Yeah. Once my computers, I had it up. Get out of here. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to pull it up, but I'm not. Why I can't? Oh wait, I found it. Wait, give me a second. I gotta fix
Yeah,
this.
you're good. While you're pulling that up, I am going to pull up Canvas. If you guys, one final reminder, if you guys have not filled out the assignment that is due tonight at 8:30 for the graduation feedback, now would be a great time to do so. Should only take you 30 seconds to fill out. And if you filled it out, I haven't given grades yet on it yet, but basically if you fill it out the whole form, you will get full credit for it.
Okay, it works now.
Awesome. Go ahead, share your screen.
Okay. So. Oops. And post. And it shows up.
Beautiful.
I'm still trying to get my oh wait, and refresh and show up. I have to get my like button to work. I mean, it works, but
Not saving in the database yet?
yeah. And then I fixed my messaging page.
Okay,
So I gotta work on this part now.
cool. Yeah, so I
Yep.
think the like button should be a pretty easy next step for you. The messages might be a little bit more involved because you're going to want some validation around like who you're sending the message to make sure you can't like type in a user that doesn't exist, basically. But feel free to schedule a one-on-one for that, and we can work on it from there. But congratulations, kudos, you are over the graduation line and everything's looking really good. So nice work.
Yay.
And I don't have to hunt you down for a one-on-one now. So double congratulations. Okay. Anyone else want to go? All right. I will open the floor up to any questions. So I would say I would be prepared to do the library project as kind of our final like run through of backend setup and thinking through features and getting a form working and all of that stuff. But I intentionally did not rewrite that code, hoping that it's more of like a natural process, right? About how we go about project setup, how we think through features, how we get those working, all of that kind of stuff. But while I do think that is valuable for you guys to see one more run through, and we will pick that up the week that I come back because I'm out next week for deploys. Nathan will be in instead. He'll show you how to get all of your code up on the internet. By the way, it is not a hard requirement for graduation to have your application deployed. So we encourage everyone get it deployed just so they have DevOps experience, so that they can send links to other people, so they understand kind of that full stack process beyond just their computer. So we encourage you have it deployed, but it is not a absolute hard requirement. So if you get to the end of next week and you're like, I appreciated all of that content, I followed along with all of it, but you know what? I really want to focus on getting this feature working. I don't necessarily want to get my database up on the internet or get it so other people can access it. That is totally fine. So when I come back the following week, though, I think, hold on, let me just double check that. I'm pretty sure it's deploys, then another week. Yeah, then career week, and then we have the final week for working on capstones. So when I come back the following week, we can either continue working on the library project, or we'll have it completely open to you guys for questions or whatever pops up. That library project is a really good code base, though, if we get it set up today. When I come back the week of the 9/16, that's a really good one to be like, how would you get search to work in the database? Or how would you get commenting to work? Or can you do an example of a relational database query? Or, right, like anything that you have in your project, the library project is a good one to basically have as a set up foundation that we can really show examples in that you can apply directly to your capstone. So that's where we're headed. Believe it or not, we are right around the corner from graduation. So even though graduation is Thursday, October 3rd, we really are running out of time, especially with me, because you've got a week with Laura, you've got a week with Nathan. And then really all that's left is tonight and the review week, and then 3 days before graduation. And that's it. That's the whole program. So we are chugging along right until the end. So before we dive into that library project, before we do our last final full stack setup from scratch, other than deploying, no real new content other than Laura's content, which hopefully you've already been through most of her videos in Canvas. Take advantage of that career week as much as you can. So deploys are definitely new content. Being able to pick someone's brain about getting into the job market is something that New York State literally spends millions and millions of dollars on through the unemployment budget to try and help its citizens get jobs. So we are giving you access to that through Laura. Even if you have completed the videos that she has uploaded in Canvas and done the assignments, coming up with that action plan is so important, because I will tell you the vast majority of students who graduate get to the end of the program and they'll send me a message on Monday and be like, where did you go? Like, what do I do now that the program's complete? I've been doing this for so long that, like, what do I do with this, right? That is why the action plan is basically the only assignment that Laura requires, that Laura will reach out to me and be like, this person hasn't completed their action plan, they can't graduate. That is the one thing that you've got all of this momentum. You want to incorporate that all into the action plan that Laura has basically a framework for you on, so that when you do reach the end of the program, you can take that momentum and keep it going. Whether that is the momentum that you take into additional education, whether that is momentum that you take into rewatching the videos from the course and figuring out where you want to buff up your skills, whether that is momentum applying for jobs. The action plan, I think, is slightly different for Laura than it is from Jason. I would have to pull up it in Canvas to confirm. Give me 1 second. Laura will definitely touch on it, though. She will touch on it during her week, but I did find it. So this is the action plan for Laura. And it's like a working document. She covers them in module 1 and 6, and then she gives you this spreadsheet template. And so it is basically just filling this out of saying, all right, you know, hey, it's very easy to get lost in everything that you can do after graduation. And so just like programmers, when we go in and we break down the task into smaller steps, hey, I got to set up the back end. In order to set up the back end, I got to get the database working. In order to get the database working, I got to go do it in Beekeeper, right? The same goes for your job action plan. So not only does Laura break it down into applying, networking, and learning, obviously all three things in key to getting a job started, but then how are you going to hold yourself accountable for that, right? So what's the time frame for that? We don't want to just say, oh, I want to apply to work at this company because I think they're cool. We want to set a deadline for ourselves so we know that we get that job done, right? How are you going to measure your progress? Just saying that we want to do it isn't enough. Having some what we call KPIs, key performance indicators, are important, because we don't want to just have this big task out there and then not have any way of measuring progress on it. Well, oftentimes we can come up with what the overall progress is, but it's that first step that's always the hardest to get the ball rolling, right? So articulating that, writing that down, thinking through what resources we need from outside support, and then what's that final threshold? How do we know that we've actually met that target, right? And so Laura's covered this in module 1 and 6 of those videos. But all of those videos and that base knowledge is what you can go into the career week, which is the second to last week of the program. It will be fully virtual, so class will be just like we've always had it, but take advantage of Laura while you have it, because unfortunately, this is our last cohort with guaranteed funding. So after this, we don't know if we're going to run this cohort again. We don't know if we'll have the opportunity to do full stack. We don't know what the resources will look like after this program. We are certainly looking for additional grants. We're looking for different opportunities out there, but take advantage of this program while you have it. It is super hard for you guys to be in that mindset of more code to learn, more code to learn, more code to learn, but there's more to getting a career in coding than just writing the code, right? So making sure that you take advantage of what Laura's offering, which is resume and cover letter feedback, which is making sure that you have a plan for after this program so you can hit the ground running, applying to jobs. It is all of the modules that she has covered, right? If you're like, I have no idea what I'm going to do when I get into that career week. Well, Laura has an idea, a framework for you, right? Between all of the modules. So setting up for success, resume and cover letters, networking, how to search for jobs, how to interview for jobs, how to stand out, values-based branding, and professional development. Hopefully that list is a good starting point for you to think of some questions to bring into Laura's week of modules. Will we show our capstones one more time before graduation? Not formally. This is the last capstone check-in. However, during that final week, I will be working with you kind of one-on-one. You can think about the last week as rapid fire one-on-ones. We do encourage you to be in person at Common Space for the last week of classes if you can make it. There is something about me being able to like literally bring a chair over to your laptop and work with you on it. Obviously, we can do it over Zoom. And so if you have any logistics issues or can't make that last week in person, that's totally fine. But that last week is September 30th to October 3rd. So the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are in person at Common Space. Do not make that mistake. We are not at Lemoyne. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we are downtown at Common Space in the big conference room. On Thursday, we will not be at Common Space. We will be at Lemoyne, the same place that we had kickoff. And so we will have a meetup link to you guys out. You can fill out that you will be attending, and then you can send it to friends and family as well, and they can attend. We are trying to get some employers there as well, so that you can show off all of your capstone work, all of your hard work so far. And it looks like the vast majority of feedback so far, everyone except one person out of 7 people who have submitted have been voting for the science fair style. So that is what we will be shooting for. Joe, we will try to have the county there because they are kind of in wind down mode for AEI, because this is like the end of the Alliance for Economic Inclusion funding, which is paid for your cohort. I don't know if we will be able to get them there. With that said, if you have any job contacts, if you have anyone who works at a company that you would like to be there, feel free to shoot me a Slack message and I will personally reach out to them and let them know what the graduation is, what our students have learned, what opportunities they have to kind of get a foot in the door and have warm intros to those students. So if you guys know of any employers, I will personally take it on to make sure that they are at your graduation, because in-person networking is one of the best ways to get people jobs. So feel free to send me any contacts and I will personally email them or call them or both to see if they can attend. And we'll have that meetup link to you probably sometime early next week. So you can send it out to friends and family. It's technically open to the public. Most of the people there will be friends or family. But we'll have more details for you there. And I did just see a question came through. Are we prepping tables for the science fair style beforehand? It will probably be like a cocktail table that you have. So like a standing table. It won't be like a sit down table. And you won't need like a trifold like presentation board for your capstone, right? We're not asking you to do like arts and crafts style anything. We will have a little sign printed up with your name on it, maybe your email address and your project name, maybe a QR code to scan to go to your LinkedIn. Those are all very good questions. Give me a second. I'm writing that down. So if we commit to the science fair style, we'll have like a little printout basically with all of your information on it. That way, if people are like waiting in line to talk to you, or would like to get in touch with you afterwards, we'll have that like plaque printed out and they can scan a QR code and get to your LinkedIn. One thing I will say is having business cards is a really good idea. Your stipend debit cards, if you have money on them, will work for at least, 2 or 3 months after the cohort. So at graduation, it's not like your stipend debit cards will like just stop working the day after. I will say your common space memberships will stop working the day after graduation. But for your stipend debit cards, they will work for at least a month or two afterwards. Probably the end of December is when they will shut off. If you do not have business cards, the industry is slowly moving to everything being digital, but I will tell you at networking events, even till this day in 2024, you may still be asked for a business card. So I am going to grab a blog post that I have written. Did I put it on the Hack Upstate blog? Give me 1 second to find that. Maybe I published it under Hack Upstate. This is a blog post that I wrote last cohort. It technically isn't self-promotion because it's under the Hack Upstate blog. But it is a 5-minute read according to Medium, and it's really the basics of what you need on a business card. I even cover, I think at the end, where I order it from. Maybe I don't. Yeah. I normally order mine from Vistaprint. Vistaprint has all kinds of really cool options. There are a bunch of different principles of what should a business card be. Some people say your business card should stand out, because, if the person is networking and talks to 20 different people there, when they're going through all the cards, they want the one card that will stand out. There are other people who say, don't make your business card stand out. Don't make it a square, make it the same size, make it the standard rectangular format. Because if you're a square one, you'll get thrown on the bottom of the pile and people won't be able to differentiate between them. Some people say just buy 500 of them at the cheapest price because all people are going to do is add your number to their phone. There are other people who say only spend 100 or only buy 100 of them, but buy them in the best quality possible so people know, so yours is a little different. So I stuck with the standard rectangular size. I went for rounded corners on mine. And then Vistaprint has one, I think they call it like soft touch or matte touch, where the paper feels like a little squishy, right? It doesn't feel like normal paper. I've had business cards for my day job, which are super thick business cards. And then what I've actually net out on for my personal business cards is having two of them with the same design. So if it's someone that I think this person's not going to contact me, I'm not going to get a job out of this, I'm just handing them a business card to be polite, I've got like a standard business card that costs like 1/10 of a cent. But if it's someone that I've really connected with, that I think I'm going to get a job opportunity out of, that I really want to follow up with. I have a more expensive business card that is the soft touch or that is super thick, so that when I hand it over to them, it's a comment piece, because they take that out of your hand and they go, oh, this feels really different, or oh, I like the rounded corners on this, or oh, this card is really thick. And now you can talk about your techniques or how important or how valuable they are. You're literally talking a card that costs 4 cents to you compared to 1 cent to you, but at least it's a conversation piece. And yes, Joe, I get back from a networking event and I've got a whole pile of cards, and all I do is I go through them and I go, did I say I was going to follow up with this person? And so I do find it really valuable to have a pen while you're at a networking event, to be able to write on the person's card and say, like, follow up with them, or some kind of reminder about what you talked about while you were networking, because it's really easy to come home with a pile of 25 cards and not remember the person's name or the company they work for at all. And so it is totally fine in a networking event, before you go talk to another person, to take a minute to jot down any notes in a notebook about the person, or just jot down something that will make you remember the person, or what you said you would do to follow up with them, whether it's connecting on LinkedIn, whether it's a possible mentorship and they're going to help you there, whether it's asking about resources. Any of that is totally fine. I wouldn't say that you need to intentionally leave blank space on a card. If you look at the picture of my card does not leave a ton of blank space on it. Some people leave their backs empty, because the back printing a double-sided card costs a little bit more money. You don't want to underestimate the font size on your card. When you are designing your business card, even on your laptop monitor, you're talking about a 13-inch monitor. When that card gets printed, I think the dimension is like 3.15 by like 2.75. So it is a very, very common mistake to print your card, order 500 of them, get them back, and have that moment where you have to like squint to be able to see the text on it. So don't overestimate how large the font size is on your card. If you wanted to leave a spot for people to put notes on it, that's fine. Most people probably won't, so I wouldn't go out of your way to design around that. But you definitely want to be able to either have a notebook or have the Notes app open on your phone, or if there is space on their card, to write down a quick note just to make sure that you remember the person. Okay. Any other questions? Really good questions so far. And I swear that plug for the business card article was not a self-promotion thing. That was people had questions about business cards last cohort. And so I thought that would be a really good blog to write up. Although we are out of funding after this cohort, so if you get a link to the Max Matthews YouTube channel and requests for all of you to subscribe, not ruling that out yet.
The algorithm will thank you for that.
Like and subscribe. Okay. Any questions about graduation? Any questions about your capstones? Any questions about where we're headed, or the month that is left in the schedule? Under a month that is left in the schedule. Graduation is less than 30 days away.
You mentioned before that we have to like record like a 1 minute video to like show what our capstone is about. How do we like do that? Do we just record through our MacBooks, or?
Yeah, good question. I'll have more kind of formalized details of how you can do that probably next week. But here's what I'm thinking. None of this is fully locked in yet, but what we're basically thinking for the new science fair style is that graduation will kick off at 6 p.m. Plan on being there at 5:30, 5:45 at the absolute latest, because that will give you an opportunity to get your laptop set up. The Lemoyne Wi-Fi is not the easiest to connect to. Make sure you have your cell phones with you, because to connect to their Wi-Fi, you need to get a code text to you. So make sure you don't forget your phones. Please, for the love of God, have your laptops fully charged. I will come over and beat all of you if you do not have your laptop charged. It's the #1 source of anxiety for me, and you don't want to be in the middle of demoing your Capstone and have your laptop die. Plus, I can't promise that all of the tables will have power outlets next to them. So your Mac laptops, we spend over $1,000 on all of your laptops. Make sure they are charged, because they do have great battery life. And don't forget your phone, and make sure your phone is charged so you can connect to the Wi-Fi. Other than that, the kind of format, get there by 5:30, 5:45 at the latest. We'll have a table reserved for you with your little like name placard on it. You will get your laptops out, be ready to kind of talk to people about your Capstone. We'll kick off right at 6 p.m. I will be up on stage. I will tell people about what you have learned. I will do a little background on what full stack applications mean, what the languages you have learned, all of that stuff, right? So you won't be expected to like explain to a non-programmer what a front, back end, and database is. I will kind of cover all of that. So the rough schedule of events is I'll kick off at 6 p.m. I'll do a little 5 to 15-minute presentation. Then I will play all of your videos, and we'll probably just go in alphabetical order and arrange you guys around the room in alphabetical order as well, just because I don't think it matters too much. And so the video that you will record, and again, I'll put this all in a Slack message and send this to you guys. So it is a little bit more formalized, but the easiest way to record yourself is to go into QuickTime Player, which is built into your Mac. And then up at the very top in the menu bar, you go File, New Screen Recording. And you can record you kind of talking through your Capstone that way. The other way to do it, which works almost even easier, now I'm debating whether QuickTime is the easiest way, is to start a new Zoom meeting. And when you start a new Zoom meeting, you can hit the record down at the bottom and hit record to computer. Then you can talk through everything that you want to talk through. Obviously, make sure like your video and microphone are on and unmuted. And then all you need to do is hit the share screen button, which you guys all know how to do because you've all shared your screen a gazillion times, and talk through your Capstone that way. So I would actually, now that I'm thinking about it, probably recommend the Zoom way, because it will capture your video easier. And then all you need to do is share your screen, and then I will have a Google form for you all to upload that video to, and we'll have it in that video cut. So that video will be due probably Monday, September 30th. So we'll give you guys 1 day in the final week to practice recording that. And if you're at Common Space and need help recording it, I can help you with it there. You'll all be required to record the video, but it's only a 1-minute video, right? So the basic idea is you're going to say, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. This is my Capstone idea. Let me show you a little introduction of it, but it is limited to 60 seconds. So this is not a full 6-minute presentation. This is literally just so the people in the room know who they want to go talk to, right? They get an introduction to your name. They know how to pronounce your name, which is very important. It is definitely elevator pitch style, right? It is saying, hey, this is what I built. If you want to learn more, come talk to me. I will be over here. And that's kind of what we'll be doing for those 1-minute videos. For anyone who doesn't get a video submitted, I will probably have like a slide last minute that I can throw up and be like, so-and-so is also here, but try and get me your videos. Like I said, I will write up details for that. Let me add it to my list before I forget. But idea there, 30 to 60 seconds, super short. 15 seconds is just going to be your introduction. 15 seconds can be explaining your app. You don't have to share your screen if you don't want to. You can just say, this is my app idea. If you want to hear more about it, come over to my table. Or if you want to share your screen in the video and say, here's the basic idea, or here's the dashboard, that's all we're looking for. But the idea there, super short, super simple, just a really quick, hey, this is what I built, this is my name, come talk to me to learn more. And that's all we're looking for there. So graduation wise, I'll do arrival at 5:30, kickoff at 6 p.m. I'll talk a little bit. I will play all of your videos. And then I will say, go mingle. We will mingle for 30 to 45 minutes. If it's all going really well, maybe up to an hour. Then we will call you up to the stage. Everyone will grab their graduation certificates. We will take a group picture. And then you guys are welcome to hang out and mingle afterwards. But after that, it will be pretty much over. We will have refreshments. I think we'll have like a graduation cake, and I don't know if it's popcorn chicken or pizza or something. I don't know. It's going to be similar to whatever we had. We got to use Lemoyne Catering. So, and their food isn't terrible either way. Anyway, so I'm not complaining. But anyway, that's what graduation will look like. And yes, for that 60 seconds, it can be all you need to do is say your name, the name of your project, and what it's supposed to do, and the shorter the better, but we're really talking 30 to 60 seconds. Well, we'll have caffeine there in terms of soda. I don't know if they do coffee at 6 p.m. But definitely despair. The scent of despair will be in the air. Don't worry, I don't like public speaking either, and even though I teach 3 hours a night for a living, even I hate still getting up on stage, but it's important to do. And hopefully the science fair style is going to break down some barriers for you and give you an opportunity to connect with people, instead of, feeling like you got that pressure of being up on a stage. Okay. Any other questions about graduation? I will get more details to you about the video, and about like what we'll have on the plaque, and that kind of stuff. If you don't have a LinkedIn set up, now is a great time to do that. Throw business cards on your to-do list, because whenever I have needed business cards, like ASAP for some event coming up, Vistaprint has taken me 2 to 3 weeks to get them. And whenever I don't need them ASAP, I order them and they show up 2 days later. So don't be in that scenario. Get your business cards ordered now. That's a good goal to have done like by the end of the weekend. And if you would like me to review your business cards, feel free to send me a screenshot and I'm happy to provide feedback on them. Okay. Any other questions for Capstone, project setups, graduation, anything in general? We won't like withhold your graduation certificate if you don't have business cards, but because you'll be networking with people, they are a really good thing to have beforehand. I was actually just cleaning out some drawers over the weekend and found my maybe not my very first, but my second business card that I ever made, that was like probably 15 years old at this point. And a really, even though old school paper sounds like an old way to network, they can be really, really beneficial. Okay. Any capstone questions, any technical questions that you guys want to address now? Terry's thinking about it.
It's tempting, but I'm gonna just wait.
Okay. So, with all of that said, let's go on break a little bit early, be back at 7:05. We will dive into the library project. The goal there will be to strike the right speed between doing the project setup that we've already done a couple times and making sure we understand any of it. So if at any point you're reading it and you're like, I don't understand what we're doing here, definitely pause, definitely interrupt me, definitely ask questions. We'll do the library project setup the second half of class. We will do attendance the second half of class. And then next week is deploys. And then when I come back in, we'll do adulting, the second half of like the intro to adulting class, work on anything in the library project and prioritize any features that you're trying to do in your capstone. We'll do an example of them in the library project. Go on break. Actually, be back at 7:10. I'll give you guys a couple more minutes on a break. So be back at 7:10 and we'll dive into the library project. We are going to go ahead and dive into our, I think, what will be our last project setup for the cohort. So, starting from scratch, I am heading to my C6 my code. I am popping open week 20. I am going to create a new folder for day 4. And then kind of weird, the backend folder we have to create ourselves. The front end folder, because we are creating it with React, React creates it for us. So I'm going to create my library dash backend. I'm going to pop that open in my VS Code if the Zoom toolbar would get out of the way. I'm going to open an integrated terminal and npm init-y. That will get my package.json set up for me. And then for the front end, I'm going to head to my regular terminal. I'm going to cd space and drag in my day 4 folder and hit enter. I'm going to PWD, make sure I am in week 20, day 4. I do not want to be in my backend folder. I want to make sure I'm only in the day 4 folder. And I'm going to npx create React app. And I'm going to call it library dash front end. No spaces in our project names. Go ahead and hit enter on that. That will get cooking. While that is cooking in my day 4 folder, I can pop open my front end folder in VS Code. Get you some live share links headed your way. Live shares are up. And then we will go ahead. I'm not going to fire up the back end yet. The front end we can fire up though. So I'm going to open an integrated terminal on the front end and npm start that sucker. Gets our front end fired up, and I'm going to pause there because the back end are lots of little steps. So in the back end, you should have a new folder created, open it in VS Code, in the terminal, run npm init-y with spaces in between. That should get your package.json file created for you, and it should look like this. Anyone need another minute? One more, you got it. Okay. Joe, I am not Sabrina Carpenter. I am not npm installing Espresso. We are going to npm install a couple things though in the terminal. We are going to npm install Express, Sequelize, Cores, and PG. Now, I will say that we don't need to npm install those every time that we're doing a backend. It is entirely possible to build a, oh, I don't know why that wrapped on 2 lines. It is entirely possible to build a node project without Express at all if you're not building an API, or it is possible, well, I guess it's possible to build an API without Express as well. It's just you have to use more low-level things, more things built into Node, and it is entirely possible to build an Express API that doesn't connect to the database at all. So that's why we have to put those in every time. Some other common npm packages that you may use are something like a date formatter. JavaScript's gotten a lot better with a to-locale timestamp or date stamp function that's built into it. But other common npm packages are going to be something like password hashing or encryption algorithms, things like connecting to the database, things like date time formatters, things like clerk, right? Those are all npm packages that we may use. And then on the front end, over on the React side, we haven't seen a ton of npm packages over there, but it is entirely possible to install front end frameworks like Bootstrap, and the one that I use at work, which is called Material UI, and a couple other ones. So you can pull in entire like date picker components, time picker components. You can do things that are loading spinners and all kinds of stuff like that. So there is an entire world of npm out there, Node Package Manager, both for the front end and the back end. Okay, now that we've got those packages installed, I got to do 2 things in my package.json. I am going to, in my script section, I am going to add a start command. That is npx nodemon server.js. Some people call it index.js. Some people call it server.js. It doesn't matter as long as you are consistent. And then the other thing we need to do is add in our type of module. And that type module is going to let us use the newer import commands instead of the require commands that are built into Node by default. Eventually, Node will switch over to using module by default, but for now, we do need to tell it module so it knows how to run those import commands. I'm going to go ahead and create my server.js file. Again, the 2 things in package.json are the start command and the type module. Don't forget your comma after the type module. Make sure that start is in the script section. In server.js, we can get going on our imports. So we're going to import Express from Express. We're going to import cores from cores. We're going to import, nope, that's all we need for now. I'm going to say const server is going to come from Express. We're going to tell the server to use cores so that we can access that. Terry, you have a question?
Yeah, my backend is not installing. You give me an error with the npm.
Probably a typo in one of the package names, but go ahead and share your screen.
Oh yeah, SQL.
You're missing the Express. Sequelize is missing the E after the S. You got it. JSON parse. Oh, open up. Oh, you accidentally deleted your package.json. So what we want to do for that is delete this out entirely. And then we don't create package.json manually, we let npm do that for us, and we do that with the npm init-y, and then we get the package.json that's got all of this crap in it. So once we get that in there, we can install. And then, just to catch you up, we throw the type in of module, and we add in the start command, which is npx nodemon server.js, and you're good to go. Of
Thanks, Max.
course. Anyone else need help? Okay, so back end. We got core set up. We're gonna server. Oh, one more that we got to do: server.use express.json, so that when we send in data in the body, we are able to send it in JavaScript object notation. We are going to server get an empty slash, which will represent the home page. We are going to rec res. We will res.send back that the server is running. And finally, we need to tell the server to listen on 3001. And we will console log server is running. Save that out. Finally, we go into our terminal and we do a npm start, and we should get our server running. Pausing there, obviously letting you guys catch up for a second, but this is one of your last chances to ask questions about project setup. Why are we doing what we are doing? What does each line do? What does the syntax mean? Why do we need npm? What's nodemon doing? Any of those are good questions at this point. So if you have them, ask them. About to get rid of me for an entire week. And then I come back for another week, and then I disappear for another week.
Would you be able to just go over what server.use is doing?
Yeah, so server.use is actually a middleware. So what ends up happening is the request comes in into Express in this listen 3001. And it's like, all right, I've captured a request. What would you like me to do with the request? Which endpoint do you want me to respond with? But before it can get to the endpoint, it needs to go through these server.use. And that server.use is a middleware, and we can set up middleware on the entire server and say, process this for every request that comes in, which is what we're doing for cores and express.json. Or we can do it at the endpoint level. We can say, hey, only this endpoint should be protected for a signed in user. So you can put that endpoint or that middleware name right in here. So what these two server.uses are doing is they're saying between getting the request and responding to the request, before this even runs, what should we do with those requests? This first one is saying, hey, allow cross-origin resource sharing. So it is saying by default, Express is going to get a request in and go, this request isn't generated from localhost 3001, block it. And so what the server.use cores middleware is doing is say, override the default Express behavior, allow all cross-origin resource requests in. This second one is saying, hey, when that request comes in, before we look at the data that's coming in, look at the headers. And if the headers have a content type set of application JSON, go look at the body, parse out the body as JSON, and stick those parsed results in rec.body. So if we leave this step off, If we don't tell the server, hey, heads up, the front end is going to be sending in some JSON, your rec.body in your endpoints is actually going to be null or undefined. There won't be anything in it. And that's because what we're basically doing is saying when a request comes in, go process the cores, allow cores to happen. Go look at the headers, see if JSON is set as the content type. If it is, parse it, set that into rec.body. Then go run any route specific middleware functions that may be running on this. In this case, we don't have any of them. And then finally go run the actual endpoint that lines up based off of the path. Does that make sense?
So if we didn't declare express.json, could we like be very direct in every server.get listen post to look for JSON or whatever type, or does it have to be, is it defining it there the only way?
You could also do it there. Ooh. Could also do it there.
Okay, but express.json is the only way you can do that. There's no like expect like application or content type.
You
Like,
could
defining the content type literally.
You could do it manually. This is a little bit of a rabbit hole. Don't follow me. But you could do something like my JSON parser is going to get the rec res next. And then you could say if the rec dot headers dot content type equals application JSON. Make the rec.body equal a JSON.parse. And this one I actually don't know how you access the body. So I'm going to say rec dot so you have to body parser. There has to be some layer of rec dot raw body. And then you call next here, and then you could call my JSON parser there, and then you could get access to the rec.body.
Okay.
You actually have to do a little bit more work on the raw body because you have to concatenate the chunks of it when it gets data. So that this won't work like out of the box. But this express.json is doing a fair amount of lifting for us. And I don't know that it will show us the details of it, but it's basically just a built-in middleware. We Express oddly didn't have it pre-installed at some point. And so for the earlier cohorts, we actually had to install body parser, and then we could import body parser and use the body parser. And then Express was like, this is dumb. 95% of all APIs are taking data in via JSON. We should just include it. So they do. But you could set up like your own middleware there if you wanted to, and then call it here.
So in summary, Express is looking for content moving between a database and a backend, and whatever method you use is what kind of content you're looking for, the content type.
Front end and back end, not back end and database.
Right.
And what it's doing is basically saying before we get to this endpoint, right, the final code that's going to run, we're going to put it through these two functions that may modify the request itself. so that when the final endpoint runs, it can get access to more of the data that's in the request. And middlewares are commonly used for, is the user logged in? And if they are logged in, make sure that we've got the right user data associated with them, like go process the JWT token. Or therefore transforming the request to make them easier to work with, like filling in the rec.body with the parsed JSON data, or therefore modifying the request itself by allowing it or blocking it from actually running. Good?
Yep.
Cool. Terry, do you have a question?
Yeah, you keep mentioning middleware, but what's exactly is a middleware?
A middleware is just something that happens in the middle of the request being generated and the response being sent, right? So if you want to think about it, let me try and do it as a quick. Come on. So if we want to think about it, our front end is here and our back end is here. And we know that when we do a fetch here, it is going to send that to our back end here. But the fetch is going to include the path, the method, right? Say it's a post, the headers, and the body. Okay, well, our backend has to deal with that kind of separately. So the backend does a couple things. The first thing that it does is it goes, all right, I've got to process through a couple middlewares. So it goes through cores and it goes, hey, is this front end allowed to be accessed? It is. This cores here is actually a middleware. So it goes, okay, now we have allowed this path to be used, right? Then it goes into the next middleware and it goes, hey, I got to go into express.json. And what that is doing is eventually getting down to our path and method endpoint. So the middleware is actually sending the data in through these. So it is sending the data through. So this express.json is looking at the headers and the body and actually filling in the rec.body for us. So if we didn't have this express.json set up, the rec.body would be empty by the time we got down to this path and method endpoint. So why do we say it's a middleware? Because it's literally happening between the fetch and the actual endpoint that we're running, right? So when we do this rec res, this actually isn't the first thing that happens when the fetch request comes in. The first thing that happens is we allow it through cores. The second thing that happens is we parse out the JSON, which gives us access to the rec.body. And then finally, the last thing we do is this function in here, which will ultimately generate the res, which we send back to the fetch right here. Express is not, we use Express for things other than JSON, like getting the entire server up and running. So yes, you do use things for Express other than the .json. There are just things built into Express, like the JSON or the raw body parser, in addition to text, defining how the rec res works, and then all of like the server dot whatever, all of that is coming from the instance of Express that we're importing through npm. So yes, you would use other things coming out of Express if you weren't sending in JSON. That is definitely a totally fine thing. And CORS is checking. Yes, it's basically checking to make sure that the origin of the request is allowed in the backend. So it's up to the backend to determine if it will respond to requests generated from something other than the domain and or the port that it is running on.
So essentially, middleware is just like the bridge between the front and the back end, and the middle. I guess the middleware is looking for some sort of like ID for the when you're fetching, is checking to see if you get access, and if it can, it'll just I guess display like the data inside of that the back end kind of.
Yeah, so I would think about it less about it being the bridge, because fetch is what's really generating the request and sending it all in. So fetch is more on the front end side, but that's what's generating the request. I would think about the middleware as the prep before you did a recipe. So when you're looking at all of the ingredients of a recipe and you're like, oh, I need flour and oil and eggs, instead of getting to step 5 of the recipe and realizing that I'm out of eggs or my eggs are 2 months out of date, which is much more likely in my house. What the middleware is doing is saying, let me get everything set up. Let me pull all the ingredients out and measure them all out. So by the time that we get down to the actual endpoint, the endpoint has everything that it needs to use, that it needs in order to actually make that recipe. So you can think about the middleware as kind of the gathering the ingredients and measuring them out, making sure that the user is signed in so they're allowed to make this recipe, making sure that the body is all parsed out so we can use the objects directly, making sure that the CORS request that's initiating this is not a burglar making brownies in your house. It's doing all of the processing. So by the time we get to the final endpoint, the endpoint has everything that it needs to respond back to the front end. Yeah, pre-flight checklist is another good way of thinking about it. It is happening on the back end, though. It's not really the bridge between the front end or back end, but it's doing all of the prep that the back end needs in order for our endpoint to work the way that we expect. And the only I would say the only 3 middlewares I've ever actually used are CORS, the JSON body parser, nope, 4. CORS, the JSON body parser, Multer, which we looked at for the file uploader, which is basically saying, well, before we can go save that file in the database, we need to assemble all of the little different pieces of the file. And then the last one, and probably the most commonly used one outside of the 2 that I already mentioned, would be handling authentication, saying, hey, only authenticated users are allowed to put new comments in the database, or only people who are signed in are allowed to access this table in the database to read the data. And you can make middlewares work for roles as well, saying, hey, only admin should be able to create new cases, but regular caseworkers should not be able to, or something like that. So in addition to user authorization, no, in addition to user authentication, there is also authorization. Not only is the user signed in, which is authentication, is the user allowed to do this thing before that endpoint runs, and that's called authorization. Okay, any questions on that before we? That's a really good question. And that's where I want to get at, by the end of the program, doing these little diagrams, hopefully making things click for you guys a little bit more. So these are both middlewares. This is the final request. That is the endpoint function that is running, that is sending back the response. And middleware is kind of interesting. At any point, it can cut this chain off and send it back to the fetch and go 401 unauthorized before it even gets down to the final thing that you want it to run. Okay. Any other questions on the back end?
Yes. My
Shoot.
NodeMon app crashed. I was trying to troubleshoot it, but I don't
Seriously?
think I think I'm missing something, but I can't identify it.
Do you channel your inner Jamaican?
I tried. Like I tried to do npm start and then they kept telling me like it's already being in use, which I
Yeah.
was doing my project yesterday, but it's I closed it out, you know?
So let me just check. Nope. So this is a really good one to show everyone. If you get your address in use, you have a couple options. Sometimes you can just cheat, right? And be like, you know what, I'm just going to use 3002 on this, and that will fire up and not cause any problems. But if you're like, but I really want to use 3001, like that's the one that makes sense, and you keep on getting in use, Joe's got a technical way of doing it, which works.
Just
But
like
you can
stop the task.
you can also go into activity monitor, and you want to stop the one that you're trying to get running so you don't like accidentally cause any issues. And then if you do command space and go in activity monitor, you can find node. And you also, this may kill your front end, so you may need to restart that because the front end and the back end technically use node. So if you quit out of both of them, now you can fire this one back up and you have no problem.
Thank you.
Of course. And I mean, the going nuclear option for that is you can reboot your computer and that will like kill any node task that is running. But activity monitor is usually a good way to do it. And Joe, I'm basically sending the kill command, just searching for it by the node name instead of the port number. Okay, any other questions? All right, we've done our most of our backend work. We do have to do one more thing, which is getting our database set up. So I'm going to fire up Beekeeper. I'm going to go to my local database. I'm going to run a command that you don't need to run, which is drop database. And then we are going to run the command. Everyone can do this. Open a new tab if you don't have a SQL editor open. And then just type in create database library and go ahead and hit the run button. Then refresh in the very top left, open your dropdown and make sure you've got a library dropdown or a library database in that dropdown. That is all we need to do in Beekeeper. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. I'm going to make a new folder called DB. And inside my DB folder, I'm going to create a file called db.js. And I think, as I've said before, this is the only one that I can't completely do from memory. So I import Sequelize from Sequelize. I am then going to say my DB is going to come from a new Sequelize client connection that is going to use Postgres on localhost 5432, and we're going to connect to the library database. Then we are going to do a const connect to DB, which is going to be async, and it is going to try to await a db.authenticate. And then it is going to log db connected. And then it is going to db.sync. It will catch any errors and console log console error, the error, and console.error db failure. We will call connect to DB. We will export the DB. And finally, in server.js, we need to import the DB from db/db.js. Give you guys a second to connect on that. Don't forget in your server to import DB up at the top. If everything is working, you should see a DB connected. The one last thing I'm going to do is throw a logging false in here, and that way we don't have to see the select statements. Joe, I think it will work fine with or without the curly braces. Indeed, it does. That's because by default, the module default out of Sequelize is the Sequelize object itself, but they also export the same exact object as as all of the objects they export. So in this library in particular, it will work with or without, but not all libraries will work like that.
Can you go over what you did in Beekeeper really quickly?
So Beekeeper, if I can open it, works pretty simple. If you've got your save connection, all I do is double click on it to connect. It doesn't matter what database we're in the top left here because we're creating a new one. I click on the plus up at the top to get a SQL text editor. I type in create database and then the name of the database. This one is called library. And then you just hit run selection. Refresh in the top left. That should give you the drop down that includes the library database that we just created. And that is all I did in there.
Wait, I think I missed a step. So you had to connect it from the db.js file first before you went to Beekeeper? Because my
No,
Beekeeper is saying me that it's telling me that the connection failed or saved.
if you can't connect, open up the Postico app.
Oh.
Nope, not Postico, Postgres app.
Postgres.
And then you may have a start button in there.
Okay.
And then you should be able to go to Beekeeper and connect to your local DB.
Postgres. I gotta start. And then. Oh, I think I did. It said it was started, but maybe that was like old from when I was using it.
Can you connect in Beekeeper now?
I think so. I gotta make a new tab. You got it, okay, I'm not sure.
Go ahead, share your screen. And I got two good questions in chat that I will get to next. Yes, you are connected in, so you're good there.
Then
In one of those two query windows, you want to type in create database library. All lowercase on library, because that's the name of the database that we're creating. And then run in the bottom right. Well,
Oh, yeah.
middle right, I guess. Yep. And then refresh in the top left next to your name. And then pop open that drop down and you got your library. So you're all good and all set in Beekeeper.
Thank you.
Of course. Do we have to repeat all of the steps every time that we want to add something new to the database, or which steps do we have to repeat? These are the steps for creating a new backend and creating a database that we can connect to in the backend. So anytime that we want to create a new table, we would create a new model, which we haven't done yet. And anytime that we want to add new data into that table, we would create a endpoint and call a .create or .update or whatever those methods are. So this is only project setup if you're starting on an entirely new project with an entirely new backend and an entirely new database. So in terms of project setup, we haven't created a table yet, and we haven't inserted any data into that table yet, but we've got all of this set up. So if you're working on a project and you're like, oh, I need to now store books and the users or the patrons of the library and the checkout history, and we haven't done any of that yet. So all of this stuff that we've done, you wouldn't have to repeat unless you were creating a project from scratch, basically. The next step that we're about to do is what you would repeat if you needed new tables, and then we will finish up with inserting new data into that backend. Is there a way to keep Beekeeper sync? This is the main template basically. The only difference is that we would change the project name based off the database name. Is there a way to sync Beekeeper apps across devices for local dev work or PG? Yeah, it's kind of Postgres itself. There's no like Google Drive or Dropbox for databases. Databases are meant to be servers themselves. And so what you would end up doing is actually having a remote database, a database that is running on a server out on the internet, and you would connect to that one server instead of connecting to your local Postgres database. So basically, instead of localhost 5432 on the screen that I'm not sharing, instead of localhost 5432 here, you would actually say like mydomainname.com:5432 and connect to that remote one. It is somewhat common for developers to not run their development servers locally, to have their own development server that they run things on instead. So it is possible to do that. And what Nathan will set you guys up with next week is how to set up a production database server. And once you know how to do that, you could also theoretically set up a remote database server for development as well. So what is pretty common to do is to have a production server and then run a script that will basically make a copy of all the data on the production server and sync it into your local database server, so that when you're working on your code, if you accidentally delete a table or all the data in it, you're only deleting it on your local one. But Nathan should cover how to keep databases in sync. And if he doesn't, hit him up for that on Wednesday or Thursday of next week. But yes, entirely possible to use a remote database server. Harder to keep your local one in sync with a remote one that's also syncing with another one. But normally we do what we would consider a one-way sync, which is basically copy everything that's on production into my local one. And that's a pretty common workflow. Yeah, making copies is, but that's often a thing that you would do even when you're working in a team. Everyone's local database would have the same table structure, but the data in them we wouldn't expect to be completely in sync. And oftentimes you'll actually get a seed database file that QA uses, that production uses, that's a sliver of all the production data, just so that you can keep your databases in sync. But it's also kind of a manual process. It's very rare that you would want to have that completely automated, because you don't want to have a copy of like every production user's password on your computer and that kind of stuff. It's also the reason I have an entirely separate different user account on my computer, because when I'm teaching, I don't want to pop open Beekeeper and have, accidentally be in the wrong database and open the users table and have data leak out that way as well. So it's another thing to consider. Okay. Now that we've got all of this set up, we have to do our final step, which is creating our first model. So we are going to create a new file. And I don't know, I think a book makes sense in a library for our first model. So that is what we will create. So our first book, we need to import data types from Sequelize. We're going to create our book model by getting access to the database. And this is going to return a db.define. Austin, I'll come to you in a second, of our book. Our book is going to have an ID with a type of data types integer, a auto increment of true, and a primary key of true. Our book should also probably have a title, which will be a data type of string, probably needs to have an author, which will also be a data type of string. I don't know, that's fine for now. Can always add to it down the road, right? Export our default book model. And then finally, we need to go back into our db.js, which I will do over here. We need to import our book model from book. We need to tell our book that it is going to come from the book model once it gets access to the database. And we need to export our book down at the bottom. I have screwed something up. Book needs a .js at the end of it. I lied. We should go back into Beekeeper, switch over to your library, make sure that you've got a book table, and if you do, you are all set and good to go. Austin, did you figure it out?
Oh yeah, I think I missed something in back in the server. I'm just gonna check the live share. Move
Cool.
on.
Yeah, the server, the only thing we added there was that import db from db.js. So the new lines, everything is new in book.js. The import, the const book, and the export down at the bottom are what is new in db.js. So this is the process. If we want to name all of these processes, this is the process of creating a new model. And while we're creating that model is what is creating the table for us. Joe.
Yes, could you just go over where you're naming book and book model, etc., and you know, why you're making it different?
Yeah, so if you want to think about it as like
You're transforming it.
think about it, I like to think about it as a dictionary because it uses the word define, right? So if I say, what's the definition of a book? You're like, well, a book has an idea, title, and an author, right? And I'm like, okay, go find me a book. Well, you're not going to go to the dictionary and go, here's book. A book is an idea, title, and an author. You're going to go, no, here's the book, and throw it at my head, right? So there's a difference between this is what a book is defined as, this is what a book looks like, and this is an actual book that we can find and delete and update and all of that stuff. So when it is book model here and everything in here, right, this definition is the model itself. This isn't the book. This is what a book looks like. Once we give the model access to the database returns out the book that we can work with. It returns out the book that we can query against, that we can insert, create, update, delete, all of that kind of stuff. So Sequelize has a bunch of different ways that you can set it up, and every ORM works with it differently, but you basically want to think about the model is the definition compared to what we get returned from the model, which is the actual thing that we can run queries against.
So that
all?
lowercase b was that's the name of
That's the
model
name of
picker
the
at the end.
table.
The table, okay.
Sorry, I didn't have chat open. I just caught up on that. So it is kind of, if you want to think about it as like, this is the definition of what a book looks like. This is the structure that allows us to put that definition in a separate file. This is what is accessing it through the separate file. And this is what is actually taking that definition and telling it, go put this definition into the database. Go create this table, basically. Then what comes out of using that model is the actual book that we can then query against and find things and do things that way. So what do you mean book no longer looks like a word?
We've said and read books many times,
Oh,
and now it no longer looks like it should be a word.
synonym for me. I can never look at synonym because I've built so many natural language processors. If you needed a foreign key, you could either put the reference in the model here, which is what you did, Terry, with the ChatGPT generated stuff, or you could come over here and say something like a checked out book belongs to a user with the foreign key of the user ID. So either way would be a reference, and we'll build up to that. We will have like a checkout history and have the references in there. Probably not tonight, but we will get there.
I'm getting an error. I can't
What's
identify
your error?
where. It's saying that my dialect Postgres is not supported.
Make
What that
sure
mean?
Postgres is spelled right here. No two S's, just one.
Wait,
Well, two
where?
S's total, not two S's at
Oh,
the end.
oh, I did that. Why did I put two S's? Oh, it's working. Thank you.
The other one that you get frequently is like dialect is not installed, and that's when you do like an npm install sequelize, but you forget to npm install pg as well.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. We like to think as Postgres as a snake with multiple S's at the end, but it's just an elephant. All the SQL databases have different elephants as their like little mascots. Okay, any other questions about this? Okay. We are going to let's go ahead and seed our database because I think that this is a project that will benefit from having a bunch of data in it, right? So I'm going to create one new file called bookseed.json .json, not JS. And then I will go to ChatGPT and I will say generate a list of books, a list of 10 books in JSON that have a title and author. I don't know. You can either add a genre in here if you wanted to, or I'm gonna say top selling tech books in JSON. Make it a little fun. Pragmatic programmer would be very disappointed if that weren't on the list. Cracking the coding interview, that's another good one. Phoenix Project is a really good one if you're looking for technically related books that aren't technical itself. Phoenix Project is really good. I feel like I've heard of this one but haven't written it. The rest of them I haven't used. Okay, I'm gonna copy those, go ahead and paste them into my bookseed.json. And then in my db.js file, I am going to import my bookseed from my /bookseed.json. And then I'm going to forget how to do this. It's like with type. With type JSON. It's always a weird syntax. With type JSON. And then after my sync function, because I want to make sure that my tables are all up to date first. Yes, Joe, it's an elephant because elephants remember everything and databases are for remembering things. Yes. We are going to come in here and we're going to say for const book of book seed book. We should do it and await book.create my book, and maybe let's call that book data so it's differentiated. So I will go ahead and save that, go over to Beekeeper, refresh the book table, and I should have the books that just came in through the JSON file. Oop, one more thing I forgot to do. Const existing books equals await book dot find all. And if there aren't existing books, then create the for loop of all the data that we want to seed in. I broke prettier. When did I break prettier? Oh, prettier doesn't understand the new with syntax. That's interesting. All right, just manually indent that by hand. Yeah, Joe, you can get into a lot of what normally happens with seeding is that it will actually have a table, a separate table for like already run seeds. And then it will make you name every seed or base it off of the file. So it will basically check the table, see if that seed file has already been run. And if it has, it will skip doing all of the creates. But your system will work as well. Obviously, you don't want to forget that, like I just did. And I think we actually need to do if existing books dot length equals 0. To basically say only if there aren't any existing books. But yes, you do want to be careful about making sure your book seeds don't run a gazillion times. And I actually may have already created duplicates in mine. Let's go see. No, I got lucky. So that is a good thing to check. But the end result here is that over in our Beekeeper Studio, if you refresh, you should have 10 books loaded into your library. And obviously, you're welcome to use ChatGPT to, or create your own bookc.json file. What do I care? Okay. Anyone need another minute? Anyone not have their data showing up in their database? Terry, you need help?
I'm gonna try to figure it out.
Okay. Got 2 final steps that we need to finish out tonight. We need to make our endpoint so the front end can access it, and we need to get our book showing up on the front end, and then we will call it a night. So over in my server.js, actually in your db.js, make sure you've got book coming out here. You don't want to forget that step. You do need to get access to the book through the db.js file. In server.js, we are going to server.get all of our books by doing an async rec res, which is going to res.send all of our books by awaiting our book. And when you get your import here, make sure you're pulling the one from db.js. We don't want to pull from book.js. Book.js is our model. We don't want the model itself. We want the book that has access to the database. So we're going to say book.findAll, and then make sure the book, again, your import up here is coming from db.js. Once you get that working, we can switch over to our front end, where we will call it a night after we get this working. So I'm going to head into my app.js. We'll delete out the imports up at the top. We'll delete out my header here. I am going to say const books and set books is equal to a use state that will start out null. We will do a use effect to say only do this when the page first loads. That will do a make API call, which will be async. The res will come from awaiting a fetch to our localhost 3001 to get our books. This books here lines up with this books here. We will parse our data from awaiting our res.json. And we will set our books from our data.books. This books here lines up with this books right here. We will say if there are not books, return a p tag that says loading. And finally, make a UL tag that maps over each of the books to get each individual book. And for each individual book, I would like a UL with a key of book.id. Thank you for the reminder. Attendance secret word will be library. And then we are going to include the book title and in parentheses the book author and close out that L. Oh, sorry, this should be LI. And I forgot up in your use effect, make sure you have this make API call. Got that there. If you finish that out and head over to your React app, you should see all of your books coming out with the titles and the authors. If you do, you are done for the night. I realize that that was a ton of code that I just wrote quickly, but make sure you read through it and understand it. I wanted to get us over the finish line, so everything is there. You can catch up on that and can see all of your books in the front end. You are good to go. Don't forget attendance. Attendance secret word is library. I promise you do get to the point where you can write this code from memory. Yes, Terry. You still stuck?
Yeah.
Go ahead, share your screen. You've got Postgres in db.js.
Oh.
One S at the end and a colon. Save. DB failure. Relation books does not exist. Oh, you know what I didn't do and I should do? Throw the word await before db.sync. And then scroll down to the bottom of your terminal. Good to go. If you're using this code as a template for any other project, it's a good idea to throw the word await in front of the DB sync, because otherwise what happens is it tries to create these books before the table of the books is actually created. So by putting the await in here, we make sure that all the tables are created first, and then we go in and we seed it with the data. And as a reminder, this is the end result that we are going for. So if you got all of that done and you have submitted attendance, you are good to get out of here for the evening. If you have any questions about the front end code or any of the code whatsoever, and I'm headed to chat, you are welcome to ask them now. Put the URL for the backend as a variable. Yeah, we're going to cover that. Actually, Nathan will cover that of how to import the base URL so that you don't have to put it in a bunch of different files. He'll also show you probably how to do a global find and replace. But yes, that is generally a good idea to have it in a file, and you can change it in one place and have it update everywhere.
What's the expected output?
All of the books in the front end with the titles and the authors. Austin, it's really funny. Your dog or cat is blurred out, so it just looks like you're like tickling the air. Looks really wrong. That is all I have for class tonight. So if you have everything working, you're welcome to head out. I do actually have to head out a couple minutes early for class tonight, but I got a couple more minutes if you got questions on the code. Otherwise, you guys are welcome to get out of here.
All right, I'm not exactly sure what's going on.
Go ahead.
Sure. Hopefully that. Okay, so I go through here, npm start, and servers running DB connect.
Yeah, so your server.js is probably missing the import book. So you're using book on 15, but because the endpoint hasn't executed yet, it's not throwing an error until the front end does it. So now that you've got that import in there, it should work.
There we go. Good. And what was it? Library?
Hmm. What library are you talking about?
Attendance.
Yes. Secret word is a library. Like we did 40 gazillion things with libraries tonight. What you talking about?
My brain's a little cooked. I was like on such a roll last night that like once we got out of class, I'm like, I'm just gonna keep going. And then I was coding up until I went to bed, and I'm like dreaming about how to structure my database. So no sleep.
It happens.
And as a reminder, you said Friday would be there at like 6.
Friday at 6 for office hours at Common Space.
Okay, I just have to make sure. Alrighty, y'all have a good night.
See you guys.
Have a nice night.